On March 9, 2024, Saturday, 8:10 a.m., I stood in my socks on the doormat with a new Schlage deadbolt in my left hand and a screwdriver warming in my right. Black coffee hummed in my chest like a low engine. Outside, the frost on the azaleas looked like sugar spilled by a careless cook. Inside, the hallway smelled of pine sol and old paperbacks. The kitchen clock ticked like it had nothing to do with me. "Lefty Lucy," I muttered. The old brass lock side out of the door it had guarded since my wife, Irene, chose it in 1991 for its proper weight. She used to say a good lock should feel like a handshake from a person who pays their bills. Irene's been gone 7 years. A quiet thing, a Tuesday in October. I talk about her in the present tense on purpose. It keeps a place warm. I slid the new cylinder in. The faceplate sat flush, clean, a planet coin. One turn of the wrist, and the door understood a different language. He had changed my passwords. I changed the locks. Then I changed the deed. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm 68, a retired electrician out of Akron. My knees complain in the rain, but my hands are good. I measure twice and don't make speeches unless the wire's hot. The house is a single-story ranch on Valerian Drive, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. A half-finished basement where my workbench is bolted to concrete. The countertops are Formica from an era that tried its best. The coffee maker is a Cuisinart I bought on sale at Kohl's, and does its job without poetry. My daughter Melissa is 35. She was born patient and suspicious of vegetables. She married Trevor in 2018. He shook my hand at their engagement dinner and told me he was in real estate broadly defined. His smile always arrived a half-second before his eyes. He talked in italicized words. Synergy, leverage, upside. I'm old-fashioned, I told him then. I prefer paychecks. He laughed and widened his jaw like the cartoon of a wolf. They live 20 minutes away, in a townhouse with a patio that collects plastic planters the way shorelines collect bottles. They have a daughter, Ellie, with a serious forehead and a laugh like a bottle uncapping. I see them Sundays. I fix things. I don't preach unless asked. If you believe older voices still matter, support this channel with a like and a subscription. January 12th, 2024. The snow pinned the city to the mat. My email acted geriatric. The blue circle spun. I had 2-factor authentication set up because my bank insisted, and my flip phone ate the text like biscuits. Trevor called. "Dad, can I call you Dad? We should simplify your digital life. You're juggling passwords like bowling pins. I can consolidate. Password manager, autofill, the works." "I'm fine." "You're not. You're used to knobs, not touchscreens. Let me help." "Melissa's worried. Love you." He came over that Saturday with a snug cap, an expensive laptop, and an energy bar he chewed like a problem. He updated my router firmware and said words like entropy. He installed a password manager with a cartoon elephant logo. He wrote the master password on a sticky note and then pocketed the sticky note when he thought I wasn't looking. "I'll email you a copy," he said. "You do that," I said. He changed the email recovery address to something I didn't recognize, explaining, "It's more secure if it goes through me." He enabled biometric unlock on my phone, my thumb, then his face for backup. He signed me out of my bank and signed me back in. And the screen looked different in small ways I'll admit I didn't understand. He hummed a tune I later realized was money for nothing, which, if that's a joke, it's a mean one. "Now, if you forget anything," he said, cracking his knuckles, "I can reset it." Why would I forget anything? He shrugged like a man rolling dice. Suspicion has a sound. It's not a siren. It's the steady drip behind the wall. You only hear it when the house is quiet. On February 3rd at 6:42 a.m., I printed a bank statement from a library because my home printer's yellow cartridge had thrown a tantrum in the middle of the night. I read the pages at the corner table where the magazines are older than the teenagers who smirk at them. 2 Zelle transfers on January 29th. $2,400 and $1,850. 2 ACH withdrawals to Anchor Invest LLC. $3,750 and $3,750 biweekly. A credit card charge on January 21st, Sunbound Travel, $9,820. Another on January 23rd, Best Buy number 233, $2,199. My property tax escrow adjustment had shifted to like furniture moved an inch at a time. A HELOC draw for $25,000 initiated January 15th. None of these saying my name. The note on the HELOC draw said Home Improvements, Kitchen. My kitchen had enjoyed no recent improvements. It was the same cheerful battlefield it had been since 2003, when I replaced a faucet and Irene applauded, like I'd returned from a war. I called the bank. The hold music produced no answers, besides a heightened regard for my mortality. When a woman named Crystal finally spoke, she was polite, and the kind of tired that makes politeness thinner. "I'm seeing authorized access from the same IP as usual," she said. "What does that mean?" "It means the logins came from your network, Mr. Hargrove." "I live alone." "You can add two-factor." "I did." "Okay, I can place a temporary hold, but you'll need to come into a branch for a fraud declaration." I booked an appointment for February 5, 9:30 a.m., Merriman Valley branch. I wrote the time in pencil on the calendar by the oven. The pencil has a red eraser that smudges like lipstick. Melissa called that night to ask if I wanted chili on Sunday. I said I would bring cornbread. I didn't mention the money yet. I wanted to have papers in my hand first. Old habit. You don't accuse a wire until you've tested the continuity. On February 4th, a Monday, I checked my email and saw the trash folder had 83 items I didn't remember deleting. Digital receipts. Hotel booking. Cancun 2 guests, February 21st to 28th. Oceanfront, preferred club. Sunbound travel again. The $9,820, which comes with small print that reads like warning labels for joy. 2 airplane tickets, Cleveland to Cancun, $1,227 each. Names, Trevor H. and Melissa H. I stared until the names stopped making sense, then stared longer until they did again. I called Melissa. "Sweetheart," I said, "you and Trevor taking a trip?" She hesitated, which for my daughter is a siren. "Dad, listen, Trevor found a deal, and he said it was on points. I thought it was his company thing, like a vendor reward. I was going to tell you at dinner. You know how he is with surprises. He charged it to my card." "No, Dad, that can't be right. I'm holding the receipts." She whispered, "Oh," and I could hear her hand cover the phone and then his voice somewhere near her. "Too loud. Put him on speaker." "I'll explain." "No," I said. "You won't. We'll talk later." I hung up. I set the phone down like it was full of bees. February 5th arrived with ice that made the world glitter and curse. I wore my tan parka from Men's Warehouse, not stylish, but it has pockets that remember where your hands go. I brought a folder. I brought my comm. The Merriman Valley branch smells like paper that behaves itself. A sign says, "Ask us about our mortgage refinance options." I did not intend to. Crystal came out from behind the counters. She recognized my voice, which I appreciated, and my worry, which I resented. We sat. I handed her the printouts. She clicked. The keyboard sounded like a horse trotting away. "These Zelle transfers went to an account ending in 9042, named Anchor Invest LLC," she said. "And Anchor Invest is a registered business in Ohio. I can tell you that. The account holder is Trevor Hastings, my son-in-law. I see he also has access to your bill pay as an authorized user." "No, he doesn't." She showed me the screen. He did. My chest felt strange, like a cabinet opening by itself. "I didn't add him," I said. "Someone did," she answered, "from your IP. I want to revoke it." "We can do that, and we can file a dispute on the Zelle transfers. The HELOC draw is more complicated. There's a security video on that transaction. You initiated it here at the branch on the 15th. I was in a dentist chair on the 15th, arguing with a hygienist about floss. He's taller than me," I said, pointing to a security camera black as a pupil. "Check your tape." She tapped keys. "That recording is only accessible to the manager." "Get him, please." The manager was a young man with a shaved head and an apologetic tie. His name tag said Brian, which in my life is usually a name you can trust. He led us into a small office with a pointless fern. He queued up video. The screen showed my back at the teller counter on January 15th, my coat, my cap, my hands. My heart swung in its harness, furious, except it wasn't my back. The coat was similar, but the gait was wrong. The shoulders square in a way mine aren't. The hat was Trevor's Cleveland Guardians cap which I recognized because he wears it to family dinners like a crown he never removes. He presented my ID to the teller like a magician revealing a dove. "That's not me," I said. Brian swallowed. "We'll need to escalate this. We have procedures for elder financial exploitation. You should know, Mr. Hargrove. We'll have to involve compliance." "Good," I said, and it came out like a cough. Right then, as if the devil had an appointment, Melissa and Trevor walked into the branch. Melissa's scarf was blue like a bruise. Trevor had his hands in his coat pockets, thumbs hooked arrogantly. He spotted me and put on his host-welcoming guest smile. "There he is." Melissa was worried. "Dad, you didn't answer texts." "Leave," I said. "Babe," he said to my daughter. "Can you give us a minute? Man to man." "No," Melissa said, just barely. "Bless her." Brian stiffened, Crystal behind the teller line. Watched like a person observing a dog meet a mirror. Trevor stepped closer, lowered his voice. "You're misunderstanding the way cash flow works. The transfers are temporary. I moved funds into my LLC so we could make a short-term investment, bridge financing. Then we're going to shift it back with upside. Your HELOC safe. It's debt, but it's covered by rising equity. You forged my signature and used my ID. It's family," he said. "There's no forgery in family. There's trust." I raised my voice just enough to make the customers look. "Brian, could you call the compliance office now, please? And while you're at it, a patrol car. I'm not pressing charges at this minute, but I'd like a report." Trevor's smile cracked then. He leaned in too close. "Don't do this," he hissed. "You'll embarrass Melissa. You'll make me your enemy." "Trevor," I said, "you spent the last month making sure of that." Melissa put her hand on her belly, a nervous habit since she was 8, and said quietly, "Trevor, stop." The patrol car never arrived. It was a busy morning for traffic accidents. But Brian printed a provisional notice. Accounts frozen pending investigation. Authorized users revoked. New debit cards ordered. He looked at Trevor like a natural disaster and at me like a sandbag. It wasn't pity. It was recognition. I drove home over salt-crisped roads with a folder full of paper that weighed more than brick. When problem is part wire, part wood, you correct both. First, I unplugged the router Trevor had hardened and reset it to factory settings. The little recessed button demanded a paperclip. Irene would have smiled at that. I changed the admin password to something crude no one else would guess. I removed Trevor's face from my phone's biometrics. I turned off the elephant logo password manager, wrote down the few I truly needed on an index card, and put the card in an Altoids tin in the pantry behind the brown sugar. Second, I drove to Borkowski's Hardware on West Market, bought a Schlage deadbolt, a lever handle that doesn't hurt my knuckles, a key-to-like set for the back door, and a small safe that bolts to the floor. I added 2 motion lights because the south side of the house is a blind spot. In line at the register, a man in a camo jacket read the headline on my folder, "Elder Fraud Preliminary Notice," and said to no one, "World's gone mean." "Just stays itself," I said. At home, I made a sandwich with ham, mustard, pickles, and the thin white bread Irene always said was an insult to wheat, but we bought anyway because it made better toast. I watched the local news. Alleged is a word we use to buy time. Then I changed the locks. The click of the new latch was a small, precise applause. I put the spare key in the safe with my marriage certificate, my discharge papers, and the index card. The old keys went into a mason jar I'll drop off at the metal recycler next time I buy screws. I slept like someone had promised me they'd sit in a chair in the hallway and listen for monsters. February 7th, I met with an attorney named Carla DeWitt on East Exchange. Her office smelled like lemon and the day's first photocopy. She wore a gray sweater and a look that told me she preferred nouns to adjectives. A good sign. "I don't want to light anyone on fire," I told her. "I want to build a fire break." "Understood," she said. "Here's what we do. 1, we execute a revocable living trust, the Hargrove Family Trust, with you as trustee. We move the house into the trust by quitclaim deed. Today, at 2 p.m. I can get a notary in this office." Why today? Because thieves carry bolt cutters and suit jackets. We get your name off the county record as owner and put the trust in its place. It doesn't stop a nuclear blast, but it complicates arson. She talked me through it. The trust would name my sister Ruth as successor trustee, since Melissa is married to the problem. My bank accounts would remain in my name for now, but we'd add transfer on death designations to Ruth, not Melissa, pending resolution. We'd file for a protective order prohibiting Trevor from accessing or attempting to access my financial accounts or property under the Ohio Elder Abuse Statute. Slow wheels, but they turn. We drew up a demand letter to Anchor Invest LLC for the return of $78,400 in transfers and the cancellation of the HELOC draw constructed on fraudulent authentication. That number, $78,400, came from a yellow pad where I had added in pencil. $2,400 plus $1,850 plus $3,750 plus $3,750 plus $25,000 plus 2 credit card charges plus some smaller merchant services. That smelled like a test balloon. And the cantrip? She asked, eyebrow up. Let him enjoy the sun, I said. We'll enjoy the receipts. At 2 p.m., the notary, a woman with red glasses and the sensibility of a nurse, watched me sign the trust and the deed. My hand shook on the first stroke and then remembered what it was for. The stamp thunked down like a gavel in miniature. We drove to the county recorder's office. The clerk took my paperwork with a kindness that didn't try to be my friend. She slid the recorded copy back under the plexiglass. It said in neat type, Grantor, George L. Hargrove, Grantee, Hargrove Family Trust, dated 2/7/2024. I walked out lighter than I had come in and a little older too, if that makes sense. At 6:22 p.m., the phone rang. Caller ID Melissa. I let it ring twice, then picked up. Dad, she said, breathless. Trevor's furious. He says you froze everything. And his vendor he says you embarrassed him at the bank. Good, I said. My voice surprised me. It had gravel in it. Can you two just meet and talk? We already did, I said. At the bank. In front of cameras. Trevor came on the line, not waiting to be invited. You think you're clever? He spat. Trusts? Deeds? You think you can cut my family out? You're not my family, I said. I let the sentence sit there between us. Heavy. You're a contractor I hired by mistake. You can't stop a HELOC, old man, he said. I've got documentation. You signed. I saw the video, Trevor. You wore your guardian's hat. You should have gone with a different team that day. Silence. Then the sound of someone trying to decide whether to be charming or terrifying. He chose the second. You cost me. You don't know who you're messing with. I know exactly, I said. And I know a sheriff's deputy who likes paperwork. Expect a visit. I hung up. I set the handset down gently, the way you set down a sleeping child. I made tea. Chamomile has no mercy, but it sits with you while the room cools. February 12th, late morning, a Summit County deputy named Collins knocked. Boots careful on the welcome mat Irene had bought at Kmart and I still refused to replace. He handed me a copy of the temporary protective order. He'd pinned it to Trevor's door, too, and he said Trevor had tried to argue law to him, which had gone the way those conversations go. Y'all have security cameras? Collins asked, because I seen elder cases where the son-in-law tries the back door. I changed the locks, I said, and the lights. Good. Folks think a porch light can't be dangerous. It can be if you stand under it long enough. He left. I stood in the hallway and felt the house breathe. At 1:11 p.m., an email arrived from support at anchorinvestalk.com with a subject line. Misunderstanding. It offered settlement. $20,000 returned as goodwill, in exchange for my withdrawing complaints. It had language like a bad apology. If anything we did made you feel, plenty of words, no ownership. I forwarded it to Carla. She replied in under 3 minutes. No, we sent our own letter, certified. Full return of $78,400 within 10 business days. Cancellation of the HELOC draw. Written confirmation that all login credentials associated with my accounts have been deleted. Or we would file a civil action including treble damages under applicable statutes. That's not a threat. That's a menu. On February 16th, Melissa came alone. She stood on the porch in a yellow coat that made her look younger. She stared at the new deadbolt. I opened the door and stepped aside. She hugged me and then pulled away fast, like hugging was something you do in a museum when they let you touch the dinosaur one time. We sat at the kitchen table. I heated soup, Progresso chicken noodle, and put out crackers and cheese. I slid her a napkin. The ordinary choreography of survival. I didn't know, she said. I'm not sure I wanted to know. Those are different crimes. Both leave holes, I said. He said it was temporary. He said you agreed. He said, she stopped. She shook her head like a dog shedding water. I found an email on his laptop. He applied for a second HELOC in your name. Denied, thank God. He scanned your driver's license. I don't know when he took it. January 8th, I said. He asked to borrow my ID to set up the utility autopay. He handed it back in an envelope I didn't open. She covered her face. I'm sorry, she said through fingers. I married a person who loves money the way he should love us. People show what they love, I said. Believe them. She nodded. She ate her soup. She looked toward the hallway where the family photos were. Irene smiling in a windbreaker at Lake Erie. Melissa at 20 in a Green Day t-shirt. Me at 35 with a mustache I've apologized for. Are you going to? She started and didn't finish. I'm going to protect what your mother and I built, I said. And I'm going to ask a judge to make Trevor give back what he took. That's all I'm going to do. The rest is physics. She cried then, not operatically, just water moving downhill because it must. February 21st, the day Trevor should have been in Cancun, we were in the probate courtroom. One of those rooms where wood and carpet conspire to hush you. It wasn't a trial. It was a hearing on the protective order and preliminary motions. The judge was a woman with hair like a helmet and patience like a weapon. On the way in, I saw Trevor in a Navy suit that fit him like a rented idea. His lawyer looked like he knew the taste of Advil. Anchor Invest counsel tried to argue the money was part of a family investment agreement. The judge asked to see the agreement. There was none. She asked why a man using his father-in-law's ID had worn a baseball cap to a bank. He did not have an answer I enjoyed. Carla spoke in the steady drumming way I used to nail down decking. Precise. One plank at a time. She presented the video stills, the receipts, the email misunderstanding. The transcript of the phone call we legally recorded after advising we were recording. Carla's idea, bless her. She handed up a notarized record of the deed transfer to the Hargrove Family Trust. The judge extended the protective order and set a schedule. She suggested strongly from the bench that negotiations regarding restitution begin immediately, especially before anyone's spring vacation budgets got complicated. The courtroom chuckled in a way that wasn't kind. I didn't mind that at all. Outside in the hallway, Trevor hissed at me like a kettle that won't boil. You think you won? You changed the deed? Cute old man move. Melissa's still your heir. Maybe, I said. And maybe her signature won't be next to yours on anything important ever again. Melissa stood behind him, pale, small. She said nothing. He looked at her and didn't see her. That, more than the rest, was the engine of my anger. March 1st, a certified envelope arrived. Anchor Invest LLC enclosed a cashier's check for $78,400 and a letter so perfumed without admission of liability. I could smell it from a mailbox. I signed for it on the porch. The mail carrier smiled at me the way people smile when they've been along for a small war and like the side that baked them cookies. Carla deposited the check into a separate account we opened just for this purpose, pending final allocation to cover the fraud charges reversed by my credit card. The bank reversed the Kanken charges on March 3rd. Sunbound Travel sent me a form apology and a coupon for $50 off my next dream. I tossed it. The HELOC draw, because a video and a teller making a note of customer appeared different, was canceled outright. The bank offered me a new card with a stag on it, as if antlers protect things. I took it anyway. A story should have a token, and I guess mine has antlers. On March 9th, the morning I changed the locks, I also changed how the house sounded. I unplugged the smart speaker Trevor had insisted I needed to control the lights by voice. It had sat near the toaster, listening like a cat that never meows. I replaced it with a radio, a cheap one with a dial that hates precision. I tuned it to an AM station that plays Sinatra on Sundays. The hiss between songs felt honest. I took the password manager off my phone and put the phone itself in a bowl by the door when I came home, the way we used to hang keys on a hook. I turned off every autopay that wasn't a utility or insurance. I signed up for mailed statements. Ink on paper is slow, but it does not forget whose hand holds it. At the hardware store the next day, I bought a sign that says in tidy font, We don't answer the door for strangers. I hung it inside facing me. It's not for them. It's for me. March 17, St. Patrick's Day. I made corned beef in the slow cooker because I know who I am. Melissa came over with Ellie. They wore green socks. I poured apple juice. I set out mustard and the rye bread Irene preferred for this meal. And I said grace for the first time in a long time, because sometimes you need your words to have someone to go to when they finish, after dinner. While Ellie drew on the back of an old water bill with a purple marker, Melissa and I sat in the living room. The couch sags where Irene used to sit. I don't fluff it. It should sag. I talked to a lawyer, Melissa said, her voice a tight line. A divorce lawyer. I nodded. I didn't pretend to be surprised. I didn't clap. This isn't a parade. It's a road. I don't want money from you, she said. I want you to know that. What I want, I said, is for you to never explain your integrity to me again. I see it. It's loud. She laughed then, the tinny, relieved kind. Ellie ran in and said, Grandpa, look, a dinosaur eating a bank. And I said, you're a prophet. And Melissa's laugh turned into a cough that wanted to be a sob, and I pretended I didn't notice, which is its own kind of love. By April, the civil case became a settlement. Trevor signed a consent decree that forbade him from accessing my accounts, my property, my devices, or my mailbox. Anchor Invest dissolved, which is the corporate equivalent of a man moving out in the middle of the night. Melissa moved into a 2-bedroom apartment with a balcony facing a maple tree that will hold her up through fall. Neighbors asked me how I was. I said, I'm fine, and mostly meant it. I swept the porch. I trimmed the hedges. I replaced the batteries and the smoke detectors and marveled again at how a 9-volt can be a wall between a person and the end of the story. On a Thursday in May, I met Carla for coffee to sign the last documents. I brought her a box of donuts because she looks like a person who remembers birthdays and forgets breakfast. She asked me if I wanted to add Melissa back as successor trustee. Not yet, I said. Not because I don't trust her, because I don't have to ask her to prove it. She smiled. That makes sense. I walked home past the barber shop, the pizza place, the thrift store that doesn't owe the museum. The air smelled like rain rehearsing. Now it's June, and the grass won't stop behaving like a job. I mow early coffee in a thermos, hat on. The motion lights click off when they sense a man who lives here. The new deadbolt has a tiny scratch where my key kisses it. I leave it there. Not everything should be polished out. Proof can be prettier than paint. Sometimes I take the fat envelope from the safe, the trust documents, the recorded deed, the settlement copies, and lay them on the kitchen table the way people lay out pictures of vacations. I don't frame them, but I honor them. They are maps of a territory I had to walk when I'd have rather stayed home. I see Trevor occasionally in my head, standing in that bank lobby, that hat on his hair, that smile like a receipt refusing to print. He taught me that security isn't about trusting people to be good. It's about counting on paper to be strong. If that makes me colder, fine. The house is warm enough. On the night June gave the porch light a halo, Melissa and Ellie came by with a pie they didn't bake, but which still tasted like love. We ate slices on the back steps. Fireflies got ambitious in the yard. Grandpa, Ellie asked, why did you change the locks? So I know who belongs here, I said. She nodded like a small judge. Do we belong here? You do, I said. You always will. When they left, I stood at the door Irene had picked 33 years ago. I put my hand on the new lock that fit into the old wood. I turned it just to hear it. It answered. He changed my passwords. I changed the locks. Then I changed the deed. Justice didn't shout when it arrived. It knocked, and I opened, and then I shut the door carefully, so the click would be the last word.